The doors of the Galactic Council assembly slid open with a low metallic sigh, and Commander Aaron Holt stepped into a chamber that always managed to feel colder than any starless void he'd crossed. Rows of tiered platforms arced in a full circle around the central podium, filled with representatives from 400 alien civilizations. Their eyes, dozens of shapes, colors, and lusters, shifted toward him with a mixture of impatience and condescension. Aaron kept his expression neutral. He had rehearsed this briefing for days, refining every point until nothing could be dismissed. Yet he already felt the resistance heating beneath the chamber's polished calm. The Council did not like being warned by a newcomer species. And certainly not by a human. He stepped onto the podium, boots clicking softly. "Members of the Council," he began, voice steady. "I'm presenting evidence from the Helios frontier sector, evidence that the Vorzath have restarted a predation cycle." A ripple of dismissive murmurs coursed around the chamber. A cluster of tall, crystalline delegates flashed their facets in mild amusement. The amphibian diplomat Vorshal leaned forward, lips pulled into a thin, disdainful curve. Aaron keyed the hollow projector. The chamber dimmed. A rotating image appeared, heavy static, distorted sound, then a clear view of a devastated colony. Buildings collapsed like sand structures in a violent storm. Organic tendrils tore through reinforced alloy as if it were cloth. The footage shifted again, revealing a fleeing civilian swallowed in a blur of motion. Aaron let the silence stretch. "We recovered this from a patrol before transmission was lost." Vorshal flicked a webbed hand. "Humans dramatize threats. That footage proves only that your colonies are vulnerable." Aaron inclining his head slightly, refusing to snap. "Continue," he said to the AI. The next sequence showed sensor logs, patterns consistent with known Vorzath hive signatures. Ever shifting, coordinated without communications delay. The unmistakable mark of a predatory superorganism. Another counselor, a pale, spined creature, scoffed. "The Vorzath have not hunted in 2 centuries. They never stopped," Aaron replied. "You only stopped looking." This earned a soft ripple of laughter. The kind that dismissed rather than amused. Aaron exhaled slowly. "We intercepted fragments of their swarm language. Translated, the meaning is simple: the marked shall be consumed. Helios was marked. More colonies will follow." A rotund avian diplomat leaned forward. "Your species sees monsters in every shadow. You fought 2 minor border conflicts, and now believe the universe stalks you." Aaron met the creature's gaze squarely. "Humans don't fear the universe. We endure it. But when something hunts us, we hunt it back." The chamber quieted, not out of respect, but offended surprise. Vorshal tapped his datapad sharply. "The Council rejects your request for a defensive mobilization. You will restrict your fleet movements. We cannot risk destabilizing border relations because humanity insists on ghosts." Ghosts. Aaron had heard the term before. The Council used it for any threat too inconvenient to acknowledge. He closed the projector. "If you ignore this, we have decided," Vorshal snapped. "Your concerns are noted and dismissed." The floor lights brightened as if to push him out. Aaron stepped back, jaw tight, weighing each word so he didn't say what he truly wanted to. On the periphery of the hall, a slender figure stood watching, Lyraven, one of the few council members who didn't treat humanity like reckless children. Her eyes, dark and reflective, carried something that resembled sympathy. Aaron walked toward her as the chamber emptied in a clamor of voices. "You know they're wrong," he said quietly. She folded her hands. "I know they're afraid of being wrong. That's worse." Her tone held a warning of its own. Council politics ran deep, more tangled than Aaron had realized. "If you need support inside the chambers," she continued softly, "you won't find it today. Tread carefully." He nodded. They shared no more words, none were needed. As Aaron stepped outside the dome, his wrist console chimed. A secure transmission. From Helios Outpost. He opened it. Static filled the display, followed by a hurried whisper. "Commander, we have missing patrols. Strange movements at dusk. The sand shifts on its own." It's like. The recording cut off. Aaron replayed it twice, scrutinizing every flicker. A faint shadow, large, unfamiliar, glided across the final frame. His stomach tightened. Helios had been the sector reporting unusual readings weeks ago. The council had called it equipment malfunction. He tapped his comm. This is Holt. Prepare a departure route back to human territory. Now. His ship launched less than an hour later. As Aurelius Prime receded behind him, the glare of the twin suns cast the station's metal lattice in harsh reds. A monument to confidence built on denial. Aaron retreated to the ship's observation deck, reviewing additional data recovered by scouts. Patterns of movement. Energy signatures fading in and out of dark space. All consistent with Vorzath's swarm scouts. What worried him most wasn't what the logs showed, it was what they didn't. The absence of response. The silence. The Vorzath never allowed witnesses unless they meant to track them. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. He could still hear his former team screaming in his memories, trapped aboard a collapsing research station, torn apart piece by piece when the Vorzath first resurfaced at the edge of human space years ago. He had barely escaped, and guilt had followed him like a second shadow. A soft alert broke his thoughts. Something massive had passed near the ship's sensors. No signal. No drive flares. Just a distortion, a shadow gliding silently across the void. He leaned in. Magnify. The AI obeyed. Nothing appeared on the display. Just distant starlight and empty darkness. But the distortion held shape in the readings. Purpose. Direction. Aaron murmured. You're already here, aren't you? His ship accelerated, engines humming through the hull. Beneath his calm exterior, a heavy knowing settled. The council's laughter wasn't just ignorance, it was a death sentence for anyone living on the frontier. He stared at the distortion a moment longer, memorizing its silhouette. This wasn't a ghost. It was a hunter. And it had marked someone. He straightened, quiet resolve sharpening his voice. Set course for Helios. Maximum speed. The ship obeyed, surging into the black. Behind him, Aurelius Prime rotated peacefully in its orbit, oblivious to the storm approaching it, one the council had been warned about, one they had chosen to dismiss. Humans didn't need their permission to survive. They only needed time. And time, Aaron feared, had just run out. Helios outpost shimmered beneath a harsh desert sun when Aaron Holt's ship broke through the atmosphere. From orbit, it always looked peaceful, a thin ribbon of settlement carved between dunes like a fragile scar. But as the dropship descended, Aaron saw details that didn't belong: abandoned crawler tracks weaving erratically across the sand, sealed windows on buildings that normally stayed open for ventilation, and a stillness that hinted at something watching from beyond the settlement's edge. The landing platform was deserted. No welcoming officer. No patrols. Only the dry hiss of wind scraping across metal. Aaron stepped off the ramp, hand resting lightly on his sidearm. Even the air carried a wrongness, too quiet, as if every sound had been swallowed. Lieutenant Marakin emerged from a nearby service bay, eyes wide with exhaustion. Commander Holt, she said, voice hoarse. I wasn't sure the message reached anyone. It reached me, Aaron replied. What happened here? Mara gestured for him to follow. Patrols vanished 3 nights ago. No comm signals. No tracks leading away. It's like they were lifted straight off the ground. Aaron followed her through the cramped streets. Dune dust clung to every surface. Doors were barricaded from inside, faces peered through thick shielding, disappearing quickly when they spotted him. Fear had soaked into the colony like moisture into stone. Mara pointed toward the perimeter. We found this yesterday. A patrol skimmer lay half buried in sand. The chassis was intact. The pilot's seat was empty. No signs of struggle. Aaron crouched, brushing sand away. The edges of the footprints ended abruptly, cut cleanly. Not erased by wind, removed. How many missing? He asked. 18, she whispered. And last night, there was movement in the dunes. Large. No known fauna, no vehicles. Just shapes. Aaron felt that familiar tightening in his chest. You alerted the council? They dismissed it as sensor failure. Her bitterness mirrored his own from Aurelius Prime. He stood, scanning the horizon. Get everyone inside the shelters and prep evacuation. If this is what I think it is, we don't have long. She blinked. Evacuation? Commander, the Council forbade fleet deployments. Aaron's tone sharpened. I'm not losing another colony because someone far away pretends danger isn't real. Mara nodded, understanding. The sun dipped below the horizon hours later, leaving Helios in a dim violet haze. Aaron stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the dunes darken. The desert exhaled a low tremor. Mara approached, clutching a handheld scanner. Something's moving under the sand, she whispered. Fast. A pulse of shifting grains erupted 100 meters out, then another, closer. Aaron drew his weapon. Sound the alarm. The colony sirens wailed. Lights flickered to life. People scrambled toward the shelters. And the desert broke open. Black shapes surged from the sand, sleek, segmented, gliding with unnatural precision. Their bodies glimmered like oiled obsidian. Vorzath drones? Scouts, but larger than anything in the archives. Mara froze. God, there's so many. Move! Aaron shouted, pushing her toward the settlement. The first drones reached the perimeter. Defense turrets spat plasma, slicing through several creatures, but more poured in behind them. Their movements were too coordinated, tight curves and sudden dives, like a single mind guiding them. Aaron fired bursts, each hit cracking a carapace. One drone lunged, but he sidestepped and drove his blade through its throat, wrenching it free before sprinting toward the shelters. Explosions lit the night as the colony's energy grid overloaded. Civilians screamed while drones tore through walls, not to feed, just to force panic. Displacement tactics. Herding prey. Aaron grabbed a comm link. Keen! Report. We're loading transports, but people are scattered. A roar drowned her voice as another section of the wall collapsed. Aaron vaulted rubble, shooting through the dust. He reached the main plaza where evac shuttles stood half-filled. A mother clutched her child, both trembling. Aaron guided them toward the nearest portal. Stay together. Go. A lieutenant ran up. Commander! We can't fit everyone at once. Aaron turned to the crowd, hundreds desperate to escape. Some wounded, some refusing to move without loved ones. He forced his voice steady. Group 1 board now. Priority, children, medical, technical staff. A man shoved forward, shouting. You're leaving the rest of us? Aaron met his eyes, breath caught in his chest. The accusations sliced deep, echoing wounds he thought had healed. I'll get everyone out. But we need order. The man stepped back, trembling. Another explosion shook the ground. The drones were closing in. As the first shuttle ascended, Aaron saw its hull reflect a swarm skimming the dunes, tracking it. Marking it. Another drone ripped through the plaza, forcing Aaron to drag Mara behind cover. We have 10 minutes until total overrun, he said. Commander, we don't have the capacity. I know. He accessed the colony's power core from his wrist console. A manual override could trigger a self-destruct. It would generate enough heat to create a barrier between the remaining civilians and the swarm. But it would take out the entire settlement. Mara stared at the numbers. That'll buy them time, at the cost of everyone still here. Aaron's jaw tightened. We hold until the last shuttle. Then we detonate. The next minutes were a blur of combat. The drones pressed harder, climbing over each other to reach the shelters. Aaron and the remaining defenders held the line, firing, retreating, firing again. Blood mixed with sand. The final shuttle doors closed. Mara shouted, Commander, everyone on the list is loaded. Aaron hit the override. A deep rumble tore through the ground. Run! He yelled. They sprinted across the collapsing plaza as the core detonated. A white-hot shockwave burst upward, swallowing the advancing drones. Heat slammed into their backs as they dove behind a reinforced transport pad. The colony vanished in a column of searing light. Aaron watched, chest heaving. The settlement he had just promised to protect was now ash. But the shuttles were safe. Thousands escaped because the swarm was forced to regroup. Mara leaned beside him. "They'll say you abandoned the colony." "I did what kept them alive," Aaron said quietly. They boarded the command shuttle and broke atmosphere. As Helios shrank beneath them, now a crater ringed by molten glass, Aaron observed the swarm scatter. Drones moved in patterns that made his stomach turn. A soft ping drew his attention. Shuttle sensors displayed a trail of faint signatures moving after the transports. "Marked. They're following the evac ships," Mara whispered. Aaron shut his eyes briefly. "The Council didn't believe us. They will now, if they survive long enough." Helios faded behind them, the first world to fall. But it wouldn't be the last. The swarm had chosen its prey. And once chosen, the Vorzath never stopped. Aaron Holt stood in the main operations hall of Earth's Defense Directorate, surrounded by holograms mapping the galaxy in red streaks. Each streak marked a fallen frontier system. The map updated every hour, and every time it did, another colony winked out. 6 worlds had vanished in 3 days. Admiral Saren folded her arms behind her back. "Our allies keep demanding explanations we've already provided. The Council insists the Vorzath cannot be active, despite losing half their patrol sectors." She turned toward Aaron. "Your report from Helios makes this unavoidable. We mobilize now." Aaron nodded, though the weight of Helios still pressed into him. "If we don't consolidate our scattered fleets, they'll pick us apart just like the outer colonies." A murmur of agreement passed through the gathered officers. Humanity had never united this quickly before. History didn't forge alliances without friction, but extermination had a way of simplifying decisions. Admiral Saren motioned to the display. "Effective immediately, all soul-aligned colonies form the Human Defense Coalition. You'll command the Vanguard Wing." Aaron kept his voice steady. "Understood. Your reputation precedes you," Saren continued. "Some colonies blame you for Helios, but they also acknowledge the evacuation saved thousands. They trust that you know what we're up against." Aaron stared at the spiral of red signatures. "I know enough to say this: we can't fight them reactively. We need to strike where they don't expect it." The Admiral gave a rare smile. "Exactly why you're here." The next days blurred into relentless preparation. War factories ran non-stop. Shipyards added new layers of armor to aging cruisers. Tactical teams drilled in zero-gravity chambers until their limbs moved on instinct. Aaron oversaw training for the newly formed Ironbound, an elite Marine Corps built for infiltration and close-quarters combat in hostile biostructures. They trained harder than any unit he'd ever seen. Failure wasn't punished, it was studied, analyzed, corrected. Humanity didn't have the numbers to waste lives. They needed precision. During one session, Aaron watched Sergeant Vale lead a squad through a simulated hive structure. The walls shifted, imitating the Vorzath's living chambers. Drones erupted from the ceiling. The Ironbound moved like a single organism, silent, efficient, lethal. Vale approached Aaron after the drill. "We're ready for whatever's coming," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Aaron shook his head slightly. "I appreciate the confidence, Sergeant. But readiness means nothing when the enemy changes shape every time you see it." Vale's jaw tightened. "Then we adapt faster." That determination, that refusal to be intimidated, was the reason humans had survived every impossible frontier. 3 days later, Aaron received a private message. Unmarked. Encrypted beyond standard military protocols. He opened it. Liraven's face appeared, pale and tense. "Commander Holt, I request immediate asylum. The Council has silenced all internal reports about the Vorzath. Worse, some members knew." Aaron felt cold settle into his palms. "You're defecting. I'm bringing you information they hid." Her voice lowered. "There is a region of space called the Silent Expanse. The Council forbade exploration centuries ago after losing dozens of ships. They suspected it was a nest but chose secrecy to avoid mass panic. She swallowed. The Vorzath originate there. They never stopped breeding. Aaron stared at the transmission, pulse accelerating. Why come to us? Because you're the only species preparing to fight. And because you'll listen. He didn't hesitate. Transmit your coordinates. We'll retrieve you. Lyra arrived on a small stealth vessel. Aaron met her in the docking bay, flanked by security. She appeared more fragile in person, but her eyes carried determination he recognized. She bowed her head lightly. Thank you, Commander. Aaron motioned her forward. Tell me everything. They walked through a quiet corridor as she outlined what the Council concealed. Early Vorzath encounters buried, missing fleets written off as anomalies, political factions stalling action to preserve economic stability. Each revelation tightened the knot in Aaron's stomach. They feared panic more than extinction, she said. Aaron's hands curled into fists. Fear is survivable. Extinction isn't. Lyra inhaled slowly. I'll help you fight them. But be warned, the Council won't forgive this. Aaron shrugged. They already blame us for their denial. His prediction proved true. The next morning, 4 Council envoys arrived on a diplomatic vessel, storming into the command hall without notice. Their robes shimmered with the gold crest of the Central Assembly, symbolizing authority they no longer possessed. Vorshal led them. He glared at Aaron. By decree of the Assembly, you are to stand down and submit to review for unauthorized militarization. Aaron didn't move. This is a war. Not a policy debate. You provoke conflict. Vorshal snapped. Your actions risk destabilizing half the galaxy. That destabilization already happened, Aaron replied. You're losing systems, and you still pretend diplomacy will work. Vorshal's frill tightened in outrage. You have violated Council law. And you violated every species' right to survive, Aaron said coldly. Escort them out. Security approached. Vorshal resisted, waving a trembling finger. Your species will answer for this. Only if we live long enough, Aaron muttered as they were taken away. Hours later, the Vanguard wing departed for a covert operation near the Persei Rift. The mission, Sabotage, of Vorzath Hive ships spotted trailing the Helios evac route. Aaron and Vale led the infiltration. Their dropship glided silently toward the monstrous vessel, organic hull pulsing with dim light, as though breathing. Tendrils drifted in the void like drifting roots. They attached magnetic anchors and entered through a widening seam. Inside, the air was thick with chemical heat. Walls quivered under their touch. Echoes traveled through the structure like distant murmurs. The iron-bound advanced cautiously, slicing through membrane barriers and shutting down neural nodes. A drone lunged from the dark. Vale caught it midair, driving a blade through its skull with a grunt. They're adapting to our infiltration tactics already. They always learn, Aaron replied. Keep moving. They reached the core chamber. A pulsating organ, half machinery, half living tissue, throbbed with coordinated rhythm. Aaron planted explosives around the nerve conduits. Charge is set, he said. The hive reacted instantly. Organic conduits shrieked. Drones converged. Extraction, Aaron ordered. They sprinted through collapsing tunnels. The ship convulsed as if alive, desperate to survive. A drone pinned Vale briefly, but he tore free and kept running. Their dropship peeled away from the hive just as the explosives detonated. The entire structure folded inward, imploding in a bloom of dark flame. Vale looked out the viewport, chest heaving. One down. Millions left, Aaron murmured. When they returned to base, a new alert awaited them. A massive swarm was gathering near a shattered moon in the Horizon Belt. Aaron stepped onto the bridge of the Vanguard flagship. Ready all ships. We intercept them before they reach populated space. The ensuing battle over the fractured moon was brutal. Vorzath craft swarmed like living storms. Human destroyers formed tight shells around carriers, firing volleys timed to fractions of a second. The fleet sailed into the silent expanse like intruders stepping into a cathedral built for titans. No stars glimmered here. No planetary silhouettes or distant nebulae softened the dark. It was an ocean of black so deep it seemed to swallow the ship's running lights. Instruments flickered with intermittent static, as though the void itself rejected illumination. Aaron Holt stood on the bridge of the Vanguard flagship, watching the darkness shift in subtle ripples. "They're close," he said quietly. Lyra Van stood beside him, arms clasped tightly. "This region was always forbidden. Now I understand why." Data feeds scrolled down Aaron's display, readings inconsistent with any known stellar formation. Organic pulses registered intermittently, like faint heartbeats echoing through the void. Vale stepped forward. "Ironbound teams are prepped. Dropships fueled. Whatever waits out there, we're ready." Aaron nodded. "We finished this." Ahead, the expanse parted like a curtain, revealing a massive sphere suspended in darkness. It wasn't metal. It wasn't rock. It resembled a living planet, its semi-translucent outer membrane throbbing with dull crimson light. Tendrils extended from it like roots suspended in vacuum. Lyra whispered, "The nest core." Aaron issued the order. "All ships hold position. Dropships launch on my mark." The fleet slowed. Dropships detached, drifting silently toward the living sphere. Aaron led them personally, strapped in beside Vale. The dropships shuddered as they broke through the membrane, entering a tunnel lined with tissues that pulsed slowly, as if breathing. Inside, dim illumination came from bioluminescent veins that traced the organic walls. The entire chamber smelled faintly of warm iron and something acidic. Aaron drew his weapon as the dropship touched down on a soft, pliable surface. "Keep mask sealed," he said. "The air here isn't meant for anything that thinks." The squad advanced. The walls shifted as though reacting to their presence, tightening and expanding in waves. Their footsteps left shallow impressions that sealed moments after they passed. A whisper echoed down the corridor, not words, but instinctive dread. Vale muttered, "Feels like it's watching us." Aaron didn't answer. He felt it too. They entered a vast chamber where the walls curved into a dome. Sinister shapes drifted across the ceiling, Vorzath drones hanging like living stalactites. They didn't strike. They observed, silent, calculating. Aaron motioned forward. "Move quickly. Don't give them time to coordinate." As they passed through a narrow arch, webs of organic strands curled toward them, brushing armor plates. Lyra's voice crackled over comms from the support vessel outside. "You're approaching the neural chamber. Expect psychic interference." That warning arrived seconds before the assault. Aaron staggered as the world flashed white. Images burst through his vision, visions not his own. His former scout team screaming inside a collapsing station. Ren's cruiser erupting in flame. Helios buried in sand and smoke. Each memory sharpened into unbearable clarity, twisted and accelerated. He gasped, dropping to one knee. "They're forcing memories, pushing fear." Vale gritted his teeth beside him. "We hold. This is what they do, break minds before bodies." Aaron forced his breath steady, pushing back the intrusions. He wasn't the same man who had escaped that research station alone. He had endured every loss. Every regret. None of it would control him now. He stood. Forward. The psychic pressure receded, not gone, but wary, as though reassessing the prey it had assumed would fall apart. They descended deeper until they reached a cavern unlike the others. This one radiated intelligence. The floor was woven with interlocking neural fibers, pulsing in synchronized rhythm. A towering mass rose at the center, a structure half brain, half throne. The Overmind waited there. Karzal's form wasn't humanoid. It resembled a massive, coiled organism with layered mandibles and translucent skin revealing shifting lights inside. A dozen eyes opened along its surface, focusing on the intruders with slow precision. Aaron stepped forward, weapon raised. A voice, not spoken, but projected, filled the chamber and every corner of Aaron's skull. "Human, persistent anomaly." Aaron held his ground. "You've consumed 6 species. You won't consume a 7th. Your kind resists beyond predicted thresholds." Irrational will. Inefficient strategy. Aaron smirked tightly. You don't understand us. That's your mistake. Karzul's voice sharpened, a psychic hiss that rattled armor plates. You, marked at first contact. You were meant to fall. Then you should have aimed better. The Overmind surged forward, its psychic presence slamming into Aaron with crushing force. Memories flashed again, this time twisted images of futures where Earth burned, where humanity fell screaming into the dark. Aaron felt the fear trying to seize him. But fear was familiar. Fear could be redirected. He pushed back with every memory. He refused to surrender, not the losses, but the reasons he kept fighting. The rescued children on Helios, the soldiers who trusted him, the billions who needed time to survive. The psychic storm faltered. Vale shouted, "Charges ready!" Aaron focused on Karzul. You underestimated the wrong species. He hurled a pulse grenade directly into the Overmind's exposed neural cavity. The blast ruptured several membranes, sending biofluids spraying across the chamber. Karzul recoiled, psychic grip breaking entirely. Aaron roared, "Plant the detonator!" The team scattered, attaching charges to the neural conduits, feeding the Overmind. The nest convulsed violently. Drones dropped from the ceiling and lunged, driven by blind survival instinct. Vale intercepted one, driving his blade through its thorax. Another slammed Aaron into a wall, mandibles scraping against his helmet visor. He fired point-blank, blowing the drone apart. "Charges set!" Vale shouted. The Overmind's psychic voice trembled, losing coherence. "Impossible! Prey does not defy the cycle." Aaron approached the collapsing mass. Then learned something new. He activated the chain detonation. The nest screamed, a deep, resonant pulse that shook every corridor. "Run!" Aaron ordered. They sprinted through melting tunnels as the organic walls liquefied. Tendrils whipped wildly, trying to block their path. Flames erupted behind them as the detonator cascaded through the neural network. The entire structure folded inward, collapsing under its own dying weight. The dropship door opened just as they dove inside. Pilots executed an immediate liftoff, engines roaring as the nest exploded in a blinding flash that swallowed half the expanse. Outside, the Vanguard fleet engaged emerging hive ships that writhed uncontrollably. Without the Overmind's connection, they flew erratically before finally falling still, lifeless husks drifting in the void. Lyra's voice shook over comms. "The swarm, it's collapsing across every system." "You did it!" Aaron exhaled, watching the remains of the nest burn away. "Humanity did it!" Days later, the survivors of the Council gathered on Aurelius Prime, humbled and shaken. They greeted humanity not with arrogance, but gratitude and uncertainty. The galaxy had shifted. The future would be rewritten. Aaron declined every political appointment offered. He didn't want a throne, he wanted a new beginning. He returned to Helios, walking the glass crater where the colony once stood. Construction drones placed the final stone of a memorial arch as the sun set across the desert. The inscription read,